Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So where you at in your German learning journey when you started learning with me? What was your story basically?
So I came to Germany about 5 years ago to do my master's in data science from Otto von Guericke Magdeburg. And my course was all in English. Even my next job was in English, so I never found the right kind of motivation to learn German properly. But then when I joined work, one of the projects that I was doing was primarily in English, but we had German speakers as well who preferred explaining some concepts in German to us, and they switched between English and German. And that's when I realized it would be nice if I could speak a little bit, or if I could understand some of the concepts of what they were saying, so that they wouldn't have to switch back and forth from English and German. And now in my current job, I speak mostly in German. So more than 60 or 70% of my time is spent working with people who speak only German. Or we've done a workshop, for example, last week for 2 days that I completely handled in German. And although I don't speak it fluently, it's enough that I can speak and converse at my workplace.
That's fantastic. That's a great achievement. Yeah. So how did you get from point A to point B, from barely speaking any German at the beginning or during your first job to now doing 60 to 70% in German?
So after I found a little bit of the motivation, I think I was scared a little bit of the language, just the fact that it's very overwhelming with the vocabulary and the grammar. I never found the time or the courage enough to do it. But when I realized, and when I joined your lessons for the first 2 or 3 lessons, I realized that all of it can be broken down into simpler topics that can be learned week by week. So it did not feel overwhelming anymore. And my opinion after those first few lessons was that I'm finding it more fun. It was less scary. I was getting to speak more without any judgment from my co-learners and from you. And when you correct our mistakes, for example, I get to learn exactly when I need the sentence and exactly how I can speak it in the correct manner. I think that the lessons were really good because we got to speak with learners of our own level. We get to learn from their experiences as well. For example, someone, if they're working in a different industry, you get to learn their technical terms. And I was able to share the technical terms from the IT domain, for example. And because we have our breakout rooms where we speak and you can listen to us, it's very good because you are so patient with us and you only correct us when it's needed. So after we've spoken, after we come together in the group, the little mistakes, they're not pointed out who they belong to, but only that we correct them. And you also link them always to the grammar concept that we learned. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was just last week that we did it. So it's always good that if I know that I've made a mistake, I can learn from that sentence directly, and I can revise it by going back to that exact lesson and making sure that I don't make that mistake again. For example, with the dative and accusative, which is something I always had a problem with, I've learned more and more with the practice, with the weekly homeworks that you give. And I always stay in touch with the grammar, the language, and my writing, which is equally as important at my workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned now the weekly self-study part. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with that? How much work was it realistically, and what did you get? What did you gain from it?
I think the weekly lessons are a good idea. And along with that, the weekly homeworks that correspond to each week's lesson makes me revise those concepts once again. So once I've done it with you in the class, and once again when I do it for the homework, I can go back and learn again. And if I have some mistakes, I can always speak to you in the Sprechstunde, for example. If I have some questions for the marking that you've done for the lessons as well. And the assignments are never, in my opinion, they were never too much for one person, and you get 5 or 6 days to work on it. It's quite enough effort for an intensive course. And because the activities are so short and so quick to do, they're very to the point. You write something that's short, you give the grammatic answers, which are again very to the point, and you can think in your head. And most of them also apply to realistic situations. So at work, at the supermarket, for example. So these are things I can really use in my life. And I found myself speaking those sentences when I've talked to people at work, when I've talked to people just outside at a bus station. There was a random lady I talked to in the train, and I was able to do that because we had talked about common topics like for the quick conversation topics in German. So
That's great.
for a short term, yeah.
That's awesome that that all the small talk practice that we do paid off in real life. Very nice.
Yes. Ich habe zwei Kurse gemacht, einen für A2 und noch einen für B1.
Mhm.
Und ich
Ja.
möchte eine B1 Übung machen in die kommenden Monate. Ich
Mhm.
habe auch angefangen, die von Ihnen empfohlenen YouTube-Kanäle anzuschauen und Podcasts zu hören, um mehr mit verschiedenen Akzenten und realistischem Deutsch zu üben. Da die Hausaufgaben auch für mich zusammengestellt wurden, konnte ich den Schwerpunkt auf die Grammatik und das Schreiben legen. Und der Unterricht war immer gut geplant, auf den Punkt gebracht und auf das Sprechen ausgerichtet.
Mhm. Genau, und du hast ja gesagt, dass du jetzt in deinem neuen Job sehr viel Deutsch
Mhm.
sprechen musst. Was machst du denn da zum Beispiel jetzt schon auf Deutsch in deinem neuen Job?
Ich muss mit meinem Kollegen sprechen im Alltags über die Mittagessen für Workshops, für IT-Topics und so weiter. Und wir haben noch einen Workshop letzte Woche für 2 Tage und ich habe das nur im Deutsch gemacht. Und ich habe mit meinem Deutsch nicht so viele spricht, aber ich hatte ich hatte genug Sätze für meine Meinung
Mhm.
zu sprechen. Wir haben auch externe Partner und wir arbeiten mit ihnen zusammen und ich muss mit diesen Partners auch im Deutsch sprechen.
And what is your plan going forward with German?
My plan is that I want to learn more about the German language, the grammar concepts, the phrases that people generally use, the sentence connectors that people have in their spoken language, which we don't get to learn in our A1, A2, even the B1 courses. Learn more about the culture. It's given me such an interest for the culture as well. So even though I was living in a smaller city where there were German people around, I never had a chance to talk to them because I did not know the language. So it's given me a greater motivation for the culture, for living here longer because I know I can converse with the people who are here and they are. I've personally noticed they're much nicer and much more open to talking to you if you speak to them a little bit in German. So my goal is that I learn German to the C1 level and I can be very fluent and speak it just as well as I speak my English.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure you will get there. I have no doubt about that.